Greetings, everyone. I'm Jonathan,
I am Nick.
and we are the Gosslings. And if you are ready, then we are ready. We will go ahead and kick it off with the toast.
Let's do it.
Grab your favorite drinking vessel and join us. You want me to start?
Yeah, you start.
Yeah? All right. Take up the broken sword of your father.
And strike down the darkness.
Amen.
Cheers.
Yes. Well, we got a great show for you guys today. We're really looking forward to it. But before we jump into the interview, let's get through our prerequisites.
Yeah, glad everyone's watching tonight. If you haven't yet already, we'd love your support. Take up the broken sword of your finger. Strike down the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously.
Yes.
And give this video a like as well. Share it with your friends.
Mhm.
And I think I'll leave it at that. I appreciate you doing that. I'd
Yes.
strongly suggest you do it. It is appreciated.
Helps us out greatly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's talk about our sponsors.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Tell us about what we got up here.
These are fantastic. This is a Kothon Spartan mug,
Yes.
handcrafted by Joel Cherico from ChericoPottery.com.
Mhm.
He is a master potter,
Yes.
and he handcrafts each and every one of these, hand paints each and every one of these. They are amazing. They're beautiful, high quality. I haven't broken one yet. I'm really proud of myself. Yeah, and but they're great, and they're designed to be what we're assuming is the closest replica, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
to what the Spartans actually carried, the
Yeah.
Kothon, which is mentioned in the historical record.
Yeah.
But there's nothing to other than what's in the historical record written down. We don't have any pictures. There's there were no paintings, drawings, anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So he made these by collaborating with Stephen Pressfield.
The great Stephen Pressfield.
Yeah, who is somewhat of a subject matter expert on the Spartans.
Absolutely.
And this was what they came up with.
Yeah.
Check it out at ChericoPottery.com.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you would also like to look as cool as you feel with your Kothon Spartan mug, then you can't go wrong with Giordani Jovanovic hair care products, made by real men for real men, or as I like to say, be as sexy as you are deadly. Give 007 a run for his money.
That's right.
What was the one that you came up with?
Oh, give your better half a reason to doubt that.
That's right. Awaken your inner John Wick.
That's right.
With Giordani Jovanovic hair and skincare products for men. Everything from beard balm to shampoos, lotions, body soaps, everything you could want, even hair growth serum.
Yeah.
It's all there. And Mike Fisher is the owner and proprietor of Giordani Jovanovic hair and skincare products. Yeah. And he's a great guy. He's a big supporter of the show. He's a really good friend. We love Mike. And small family owned Christian company.
Yeah.
They do everything themselves. It's really impressive.
Yeah.
JordaniJovanovic.com is the place to go. Check them out.
Check them out.
Get some stuff squared away for you or for the man in your life.
That's right.
Yeah.
Love it. Very good. We appreciate Mike's support of the channel.
Yeah.
And everyone watching tonight, thank you guys. We're really glad that you're here, and we think you are absolutely going to love tonight's guest.
Mm-hmm.
We've got it all teed up, and without further ado, let's get into it.
Kick it off, baby.
Let's do it. Let's roll.
Your YouTube feed is crap. Stop wasting your time watching bot-boosted shills and self-appointed gurus cloying for your attention. Instead, join the Gosslings interview live stream and podcast. The Gosslings, a dark-lit digital speakeasy of free thinkers. A super chat of radical truth-seeking wizards who eat trolls for second breakfast. Topics that'll make your mama's hair stand on end. Ideas that'll make your pastor's knees knock. Guests that will illuminate the hidden chambers of your mind. And interviews that strike down the darkness. Welcome to the Gosslings.
Mark Sargent, flat Earth extraordinaire specialist here on the Goslings to tell us all about flat Earth. I am fairly convinced. I'm, as you say, like I'm 95% there. So Mark, I think you're right. Like I'm pretty much there. I just have to have my little social credit score escape hatch.
Yep.
Nick is a little bit more on the fence, so it's almost like it's going to be a Convince a Nick podcast.
Yeah, it
Where
is.
we-
Yeah, very much so. I
Nick.
mean, we're a couple of Christian writers that like to talk about weird stuff, and Jonathan and I are on the same page about a lot of stuff, like
Bigfoot,
Bigfoot, aliens,
Nephilim.
oh yeah, the Nephilim, Genesis 6, all that.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of things in which we kind of diverge a little bit, and one of them is flat Earth.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, you know what? How cool would it be?
Yeah.
To have because you try to talk me into it.
Oh,
quite a
yeah,
bit. You try to
many
convince me quite a
times.
bit, but
Nick
I also
doesn't
have
hate
someone
the
like Mark
government
Sargent.
as much as I do. So
Well,
that's a big part of it.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I hate him.
He doesn't have the demon inside of him.
Well, that's that. But I thought it'd be really cool to have Mark Sargent and Jonathan gang up on me, and
just beat him mercilessly.
yeah, I'm not the belligerent, I'm not going to believe what's right in front of my face type of guy.
Yeah.
I'm the open-minded skeptic.
Yeah.
First off, I never have to beat up on anybody. In fact, the disclaimer I throw out to people, and it is not reverse psychology, is if you wake up every morning and like your life the way it is and everything is awesome, as the song goes, then don't look at this. Do not, it's kind of a Morpheus line, but it's true, which is because if you go down too far, you can't unsee it. You can't come back from it. It's very matrixy, because which is why I tell people, I go, look, I'm not going to convince you that you're not living on a globe. I'm not even going to try to persuade you. I'm just going to throw the idea at your head, because you have to tear it down yourself. And because you tear it down yourself in the end, how are you going to build back into it? Which is why Cypher was so, I confused me. It's like, how are you trying to get back into the Matrix and have your memory wiped? That doesn't even make sense. Go back in knowing everything. At least you'll have fun for whatever your lifespan is going to be. By the way, because you guys are Christian writers, did you ever look into it? I don't know if I ever sent this to you in an email. Testingtheglobe.com.
I have heard of that.
It was from the now late Rob Skiba.
Yeah, that's where it was. Yeah, Rob Skiba.
Yeah, he did a
God rest
website. It's still up there, called testingtheglobe.com, and he did amazing work. In fact, he would have had way more mainstream content, and he would have been in the documentary, but the media will not touch. I'll give you a quick story. When I was doing the thing for National Geographic down in Los Angeles, there was a kind of a war between producers. Don't like each other, and so CBS was down there as well, and they were going to talk with Jaron, but Jaron couldn't make it. And so CBS came to me and they said, "Hey, who else can we talk to here?" And I go, "Well, see that guy getting mobbed by all those people? That's Rob Skiba." I go, "He's bigger than I am." In fact, I've done conferences with him where he can't even get off the stage because people are just, not like women are throwing underwear at him, but they just love him so much.
Yeah.
And he was doing public presentations years before we were doing Flat Earth. He just transitioned over. And I said, and the interns are clicking on their, click, 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 and they look and they're shaking their heads and they go, "Nah, too churchy. We can't talk to him." And so they wouldn't. And so CBS refused to talk to him. And so I go, come up with somebody else. I go, okay, well, Patricia Steer, she's perfect. She's camera ready. Get her on there. But it always amazed me that Rob was excluded from as many things as he was, because of that. The media to this day, I mean, you guys know, the mainstream media does not want to have chapter and verse quoted to them at any given point.
Yeah, you get in trouble if you say Jesus.
Oh yeah,
you do, and so, which is weird, all things considered. But
how open-minded of them.
There's power in the name, and that sounds always hokey when I say it to my own ears, but I think it's true. Like, I remember working in a corporate office building just a few years ago, and surrounded by a bunch of feminized normies.
Right.
And like
blue, you could say blue team, by the way. I call it
blue team. Huh?
Oh my gosh,
red team, blue team. Yeah.
So it was the most blue team office environment you can imagine, and you could quote the Bhagavad Gita, you could quote the Quran, you could quote the Talmud, you could talk about any guru, any Egyptian deity, but man, if you start quoting the New Testament or Jesus, you start bringing up the whole room gets tight
and icy.
Yeah.
Which surprised me when I made the clues, because the Christian community, I was raised evangelical, born again Christian. Church just wasn't just a Sunday thing.
Yeah.
And when the Christian community came at me really quickly and said, "You're dancing around the issue of God too much. You've got to sort this out now." How does flat Earth? This is before Rob Skiba made his website, which I highly recommend to people. Where I had to do a clue that talked about flat Earth in relation to God, to where I've ended up making a clue, and I wasn't shy about it. I said, okay, the clue is called "They Are Hiding God." And that's where I got into it. And I quoted Genesis, the story of the Tower of Babel, which I still think today is just a wonderful story, even though it's so short. It's tiny.
Yeah.
But I extrapolated it out, which was, the first civilization that figured out where they were. They figured out that it was a structure, there was a building. It's like, oh yeah, we got to build a bridge. Start working on that, right? Because that civilization seemed to be unified. They weren't as nearly, not even a close, 1,000th divided we were. And the story goes where God looks down, it's like, crap, they're gonna make it. We got to do something. All right, languages, scatter, and let's hit the reset button and go from there. But there were other stories, even before Rob got into it. Not to go into chapter and verse too much, but the story of Joshua. Where he asked God to hold the sun and the moon in the sky for an extra day, so he could
stand thou still at Gibeon.
Yes, slay more enemies. And I try to remind people, I go, how easy would it be to hold the sun and the moon in the sky if it was just a planetarium? You just hit pause on the sun and the moon in the sky. You don't have to mess with a whole bunch of physics with a solar system. You know what would happen if you had to pause a whole solar system? That'd be a nightmare. I'm not saying that God is lazy. I'm saying that God is efficient. God, it's like, look, everyone's going to buy the story. It's like, we don't have to make a solar system. Christ coming back and all eyes will see him simultaneously. Only worse than a flat Earth, to where I had people arguing with me saying, no, he could show up on one side and the other people could watch him on cell phones on the other. I was going, come on, man, that's a stretch. I go, plus it kind of loses a bit of its impact, doesn't it?
On your iPhone,
Yeah, it's like, it doesn't translate well.
Where they did that though? They did that in like the first 10 minutes, which is one of like the greatest first 10 minutes of any movie ever, in Masters of the Universe. When they're in Eternia and Frank Langella as Skeletor is like announcing to everyone that he's like taken over all of Eternia, and he's like this giant hologram head.
Yeah,
like that you can see from everywhere. They cut to like all these different scenes of like the good guys.
So Eternia is flat.
Eternia is for sure flat.
Okay.
Everywhere's flat.
If you did multiple images, if you play any games, if you instanced it, sure, you could do multiples with the globe, but it still works. Anyway, sorry. Yeah. What was the initial question? Where were we on this?
I think we were.
You were talking about Rob Skiba, Tower of Babel.
Oh yeah, the Christian stuff and
the verboten nature of it.
Yeah, the foreboding nature of it. Yeah, to this day. But again, it was weird because I got into it, but I am still not invited to the Flat Earth. Well, before at least the pandemic, we had Flat Earth Christian conferences where I wasn't invited because I didn't quote enough chapter and verse.
So you can't win either way.
I couldn't win it. And in fact, that was because at least half of our community is Christian and the other half is agnostic, for lack of a better term.
Right.
And so when the conferences, nobody was happy, completely happy, because to where the second conference, we split it between two stages. You had your Christian side over here and your agnostic side over here.
Yeah.
And there were people always complaining. Social media was just lit up. It's like, it wasn't Christian enough. And there are other people, it's like, it's too Christian. It's like, okay, well, at least we were on the right track. We know what happened. But the media would only cover the non-Christian side.
Of course.
Which was
yeah.
So no, I can't tell you how many interviews, not one of them ever brought up the clue they are hiding God. Not one.
Really?
So, nope.
That's interesting.
Nope. I'm telling you, where there's smoke, there's fire. The thing you can't talk about, or the thing no one else will talk about, is usually the only thing that matters.
There you go.
It's like the secret, key to unlock the thing. But anyway, okay. Nick,
let's kick off our questions with our patrons question.
Patreon question. What is it?
Patreon question.
What do I identify as? Is this a pronoun question?
No, not a pronoun question. Not a pronoun question.
Right.
You're good. This comes from American Cars.
Willing to learn.
And
go ahead.
he says, I have two good friends that are snipers, including a sniper instructor.
Oh,
both
I
keep-
already know where this is going, but go ahead.
I knew it. Both keep asking me about the Coriolis Effect and why they account for the spin of the Earth, and they're spot on in their shot. I know it has something to do with demon math,
That's
but
what he calls it. And
yeah, that's what he calls it.
And he's a flat
Okay.
earther. He actually recommended.
But I
you,
can
by
find
the
the videos I watched along with my own journey.
Yeah.
Here's where I start.
And I've had this
I-
argument before too, by the way, with guys. Yeah.
Yeah, the Patreon question is a fair one, but I have had to deal with this one for years. First off, I shoot. Right.
Nice.
Probably can't tell by looking at me, but I am a pro guy. Gun control for me is using two hands. Right.
Yes.
Less than lethal. That's when you're changing mags.
That's
Hey,
right.
that's-
The only time you take a knee is to pray and tighten up your aim, baby.
There you go. That being said, I have yet to run into a scope that is anything more than windage and elevation.
Uh-huh.
That's all it is. It's just a dial on top and a dial on side. I have never seen a dial on the side that's for Coriolis effect.
Yeah.
Second, a sniper, even the best snipers, are barely shooting a mile, maybe a mile. And which is why I sent you that link. The Flat Earth testimony shows by subject matter expert. Immediately, I had every, except for snipers, which was interesting, every group in the military, especially my favorite was Master Gunner from, because he did tanks. And he goes, he comes straight out to me, he goes, do you know how hard it would be to fight any sort of battle if we had to take into account the Coriolis effect? Coriolis effect, by the way, is not the curvature of the Earth, it's the spin of the Earth. So you remember, if the equator were spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, roughly, and the North Pole, you're spinning at 0 miles an hour because it's the center of the merry-go-round, then everything else between is, 800, 700, 600 miles an hour. And he goes, you would have to account for that. You'd have to know where you were on the battlefield. Forget about the map. You'd have to know where you were on the globe before you took any sort of long-range shot. And everything from howitzers that are firing up over 30 miles, torpedoes are at least 30 miles. A lot of people don't know that.
Wow.
Torpedoes go a long way, which is basically just underwater, but it's the same thing in the air.
Yeah.
The tanks, which are usually under 10 miles, and then the missile systems, unclassified, we're talking dozens of miles, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, and every single military guy I talked to, every single one of them said the same thing. It's like, oh, no, we've heard about the curvature of the Earth and the Coriolis effect and the spin of the Earth. We never factor it into the firing solutions, ever. And it's just kind of lost. It's something that's mentioned to the rookies, and every rookie will bring it up. Same thing with the surveyors. The surveyors, the rookie surveyors will ask the veterans, the grizzled veterans. It's like, so are we taking into account the curvature? And it's like, yeah, don't worry about it for this time. They'll just wave them off, and then 10 years later, they forget that it was ever there. So any sniper that says they have to account for the spin of the Earth and or the curvature. No, the curvature of that's different. Elevation is elevation, right? That's not accounting for the curvature of the Earth. Eventually, you have to deal with elevation because the bullet will eventually start, nosing down. But the curvature of the Earth, no, you're not firing anywhere near long enough to take that into account. Now you're firing cannons that are going 30 miles, you should have to take something like that into account, or at least the spin of the Earth. Because remember, you're firing, especially with howitzers, you're taking these huge arcs, way up there. No one ever factors it in. No one ever, again, point them straight at my testimony shows. They can listen for hours on end on how these guys all say the same damn thing. But to be fair, are there some books out there, are there field manuals which will bring in some fuzzy math? Sure. They never ever get used, ever. The guys is like, no, turn, distance, wind, maybe, fire. That's it. No one ever.
Yeah.
If you had to take into account, especially, let's say you were down in Central America, right? Because we never do anything in Central America.
No.
Fire anything. It's like, we don't talk about that. The CIA, they're absolutely good. By the way, Jack Ryan, love the fact that little side note, I love the fact that Jack Ryan in both the movies and the television series is this almost a literal Boy Scout. And it's so outraged. It's like, no.
Sorry, Mr. President, I don't dance.
Yeah, the CIA.
Clear and present danger.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean that argument you don't realize until you get older. You know that argument where the one guy had the smart guy had the waiver, the waiver signed by the
Oh
president.
yeah,
It's
you
like,
don't have one of these, do you,
yeah,
Jack?
exactly.
It's like,
Right.
yeah,
And
they
which
free.
and after that movie, it's like, no, that guy's getting off because he's
Mhm.
got that piece of paper.
Yeah, Jack, you're going to jail. I hate to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, and plus, come on, it's the freaking. Sorry to get. Let me get off on one more tangent.
Yeah, the
real
Fast and the
quick.
Furious is just a series of movies, Mark. I mean, come on. There certainly was never any gun running that happened.
Years earlier, there's a wonderful movie called 3 Days of the Condor with Robert Redford. If you have never seen it, oh my God, watch it. Which it was so ahead of its time. It was like 1975, which is CIA on CIA crime. It wasn't the CIA were good guys. They were both bad guys. But what happened was I'll give you the preface. I won't give you the spoilers, which was there was a CIA research group, the book nerds. They were just going through books, looking for codes and blah, blah, blah. Happened to stumble upon an op being run by another CIA group. And it was above these guys' pay grade. So they had the research group wiped out, just wiped out. It's like, sorry, that happens, by the way. It's like above your pay grade. You shouldn't have stumbled into it.
Time to get you whacked. Yep.
Yeah, you guys all got to die.
National
security. That's the CIA. So when Harrison Ford gets and granted, Harrison Ford, one of his gifts is to play outraged so well.
Oh, yeah.
And it seems so legitimate. It's like, how dare you? We're America. We're the good guys. It's like, we have to do the right thing. It's like, what are you talking about? It's the CIA.
It's the CIA, Jack. I think you're in the wrong business.
It's like, okay, so the KGB, they're evil all the time. CIA, no. We wear white hats.
No, yeah. I mean,
Anyway,
that ambush. Yeah.
Yeah. So militarily, though, the snipers, no, they got nothing. So every time somebody sees somebody on CNN, the fact that you have snipers come on CNN, it's like, oh, I had to take into account the curvature of the earth. And sometimes they'll bring up the spin of the earth. I got a dozen guys that fire 10 times as long saying, what? No, never.
Yeah. Well, and I could see it too, because, I bet you, as America in Cars coins the phrase demon math, I bet you that math just kind of cancels itself out, or is so fuzzy it just doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Like it's just an inconsequential thing.
It doesn't, even when the Barrett was new, if the Barrett.
Oh yeah, they're here in Tennessee. Yeah,
love the Barrett, and even when that was coming out, the stuff that I had read was somebody initially when they were doing the testing, military contract biz, they were trying to factor in the spin of the earth, and it wasn't working. So they went back to the straight thing, and everything was fine. And now, of course, Barretts are the thing.
I took a class with Frank Galley, the Sniper's Hide. This is like a precision rifle class where we're shooting out to like 700 yards. Not super far. In fact, we were out there yesterday with a couple Scar 17s, and some ball ammo, punching out to 650 and 700. And we had everything from that to 5.56. We even had some 300 blackout tracers, which were a lot of fun. By the way, if you've never shot tracers, it's like a Roman candle on steroids.
Nice.
It's awesome. And it was a nice wet day,
fun.
so we could get away with it. But same thing, whether you're running just an EOTech or an ACOG, or you have some variable power, 5 to 25 power, telescopic SIG Tango 6, $3,000 scope. Right. All this stuff has is your reticle, which is, one of like 3 or 4 different variations.
Sure.
And then it has your elevation, your windage, and then it might have your, what is it? Like your focus reticle, like diopter kind of over here, just to help tighten things up a little bit. But even with 308, the parabolic arc of 308 is like, if you're dialed in at, 50, you're back on it or 25, you're back on it like 100, and so that arc, you're never going to be able to factor in spin and contour of the earth while you're trying to also arc around into a target. It's just,
and by the way, one more thing for the listeners, which is, don't forget the comparisons here, which is, if bullets have to take into account the spin of the earth, right? Then why don't planes?
Right.
Because planes are basically just a slower moving bullet. That's all they are. In fact, when you get up to spy planes and high speed fighter planes, you're traveling faster than bullets.
Yeah.
So at what point do they have to factor in the spin of the Earth and the curvature of the Earth? And nobody does, especially, I mean, there's wonderful calculations. We picked up on this immediately, which is if you're traveling even like 500, 600 miles an hour, you will have to, if you're in a commercial airline, you either have to nose down, depending on your perspective, constantly, or nose up constantly, depending on which way your plane is oriented. And if you've ever flown, you know full well, there's a wonderful video, I'll see if I can link it for you, where when you wake up to cruising altitude, if it's a calm day, your plane's not moving. I mean, it is tabletop freaking flat to where your water glass isn't even jiggling at all. It is absolutely glass. And if you know full well, I mean, I've flown so many times where you know full well, if you're even dropping 500 feet, right, in like a minute, you will feel it. You absolutely know when your plane noses down, noses up. So why doesn't it nose down on a regular basis, and why doesn't it nose up on a regular basis? And no one will talk about it. There's a wonderful graphic I picked up. I'll send it to you here. It's a great little video where they were tracking. You've seen like flight radars where it's top down and you're looking at planes crossing the country. Well,
Yes.
somehow, I don't know who did this. I don't know what group did this, but they also had the data when you turned it sideways. And you were looking at basically the United States from a horizontal standpoint, and they expanded it a little bit to make sure, because you're only at 35,000 feet. You're only like five, not even 10 miles, even maxed out, not even 10 miles above, which is tiny. So they expanded it, and they showed that basically the plane goes almost straight up and levels completely off and goes down. And all the flight paths were absolutely tabletop flat. Well, that's weird because the raw data should be curved, because the Earth is curved and there are millions of feet of curvature from Los Angeles to New York. So why is the raw data flat? And I'm like looking at this going, wait a minute, how? It's because the raw data is flat. You didn't just straighten it out for the program. I'll send it to you though if I can get a chance.
And also the strangely erratic flight path nature, the strangely erratic nature of flight paths. Is an interesting one.
Yeah, and I didn't have this written down, but it kind of one of the things that spooked me the most, I think, was like nobody flies over the Indian Ocean, like nobody flies over the South Pacific
or Antarctica.
Yeah, they don't fly anywhere near Antarctica, and you're tracking their flight path. So you can go to Flight Tracker, you can go to some of these other sites that track airlines flying. You can see the planes all over the world at any time, but they don't take the shortest distance between point A and point B. They seem to take the long way around to go up the coast of one continent, then down the coast of the other. Can you talk about that a little bit? That did make me think.
That was recommended to me early on when I was making the clues. I hadn't even finished the clues yet by a guy in England. He goes, you want to see some weird stuff, man? He goes, look at the long haul flights. I go, what's a long haul flight? He goes, anything that's traveling from the southern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere, meaning Africa to South America to Australia, and so on and so on. He goes, the routes don't make any sense. In fact, one of my subject matter experts, which the corporate travel agent, which I'm looking at right here, which, wow, I did that back in December of 2015. They said that you don't know how lucky you are in the northern. Most of the population is in the northern hemisphere. We call it the inner ring, right? The inside of the map. You can get nonstop flights anywhere you want. It's just a question of when, right? Mostly before the pandemic. I know routes have changed since the pandemic, but before the pandemic, you could travel anywhere basically you want in the northern hemisphere. Because in the southern hemisphere, you can't get nonstop flights. In fact, 95% of the flights, if you're going from southern to southern, are multiple connection. And on top of that, where it gets even weirder is they go north, way, way north. You're bouncing off Los Angeles or Dallas and then going all the way back down to Australia. And it doesn't make sense unless you put it on a flat Earth map, which is known as the AE map, otherwise known as the azimuthal equidistant map, which took me about a month to say correctly. And then it's not this high arcing thing which doubles or triples your distance. The distances are still ridiculous, but it turns it into a shallow dog leg or a straight line, and it doesn't make any damn sense. In fact, and then I had to make a separate clue. I did clue 7, I think, which talked about how there were no flights. I was like looking for freaking nonstop flights in the southern hemisphere, and there weren't any. And then somebody found like 5 in the whole southern hemisphere, 5 nonstop flights. And I mean, we're talking 5, right? In fact, there are some capital cities you can't go nonstop from place to place. It's like, What are you talking about? You can always find a nonstop from this place to this place or this place, but not down there. And they and I've always bugged me when people would email me about. I finally did a clue, which I finally, when I said, okay, fine, you found a flight that if you found some nonstop flights, but you can't prove the route. Meaning, this is the other part. There's two parts to this. The second part is that because I wanted to see where these planes were going, and what happened was when these planes were flying over the ocean, if it got to a point where there was no other island where there was any radar next to it, the planes would blink out, and the latitude and longitude would go into estimated or approximated mode, and then it wouldn't blink back onto the screen until it got close to shore, which meant exactly what it sounds like, which means when you're flying down there over the oceans, like main Indian Ocean, like, I don't know, those Indian Ocean flights that disappeared recently with flagship 777s, because that would happen. They know approximately where you are. They don't know exactly where you are. And then I had people come back and said, dude, it's not just happening in the Southern Hemisphere. Same thing happens in the Northern Hemisphere. I go, really? They go, think about it. There's no islands between Los Angeles and Hawaii. And so when you get off Los Angeles or San Francisco or wherever it is, if you're leaving the States, you're heading to Hawaii, you get about 150, 200 miles offshore, blink. That's it. Your latitude and longitude are gone. You are now flying solo. You are without a net. And then eventually, once you get within 200 miles of Hawaii, you'll blink back on and then you can land. And everybody's been doing this for years and years, and it hasn't really been a problem until every once in a while, you'll get a plane that'll go down for some reason in an ocean, and you'll hear the stories, wow, we can't find the black boxes. It's like, what do you mean you can't find the black boxes? It's a freaking flagship. You know, it's a 777. You absolutely have redundant black boxes in this thing. How'd you lose it? And they don't want to talk about it because it shouldn't be, it shouldn't be possible. But there's some things that are hidden very, very well because it's so mind-blowing for some people. It's the last option you would ever go to. You would never say, oh, we can't find the black boxes in the Indian Ocean for that 777 because the earth is flat. No one's going to say that. No one would even jump to that sort of conclusion. So you just hum and haw about it and speculate all the day, because anyone that even brings up flat earth, people just get laughed out of the room.
Yeah.
So it's brilliant.
Yeah. There are a handful of topics that will make you useless at parties, and which is like my great excuse now to never go to parties that I don't want to go to.
And if you're ever forced to, you know exactly what to say.
Yeah, I know exactly what to bring up. I'll tell you what brought me into flat Earth was a Probably Alexandra video of all things from like 2017, 2018.
The what now?
There's this girl that has this YouTube channel called Probably Alexandra.
Oh yeah. Blonde girl, skinny. Needs to eat a sandwich or two.
She does need a burger. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
She needs a few.
She needs
very pretty.
She needs 100 cc's of hand sandwich. Stat.
She does. She's like the one girl on planet Earth who needs to go to McDonald's every day.
I know. Everybody else, but her, it's like, I don't know what your eating regimen. I mean, what is it? She has dryer lint for dinner and ice cubes for dessert or something like that. She does.
Well, and she has like some medical condition, but whatever.
Yeah. Anyway, I think she's great. But anyway, go ahead.
No, she does. But she was the one that sort of like, I think she refers to flat Earth as kind of being like the gateway drug or like the latchkey to all of the things that you're not supposed to talk about. Like if once you talk about it being kind of a Matrix thing, once you kind of like take that red pill, that FE red pill, all of a sudden, like all the other things that you're not supposed to question, Antarctica, Genesis 6, the Nephilim, Adrenochrome, the narrative of the past few years, and a couple of things that you're not allowed to talk about, except when you use code words, like all that stuff like starts to kind of unfold itself.
And that's because it's the biggest one. It's not just the gateway. It cracks your head open to where everything else is possible. It's the umbrella, which is really, really hard to open. But once you open it, you all of a sudden realize it's like, hey, wait a minute. What about all these other things? Anything else you had discounted at some point, you are now revisiting. And everybody does that, which, I mean, it's like, oh my God, I have to go back and look at all this stuff again. And on top of that, I don't shoot down any more conspiracies anymore. People think I'm joking when it's like, oh, Elvis is still alive and we're pretty sure he had Bigfoot's baby, right? Normally I'd be like, get out of here, man. I don't want to talk to you. But now I'm like,
maybe.
That's What do you got? I'll throw it at me.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. And
Sure.
it'd be hypocritical for me to say anything otherwise. It's like I start my day with flat Earth, so well, I don't have a leg to stand on. So yeah. I mean, the only criticism I got from people was that they said that we were distracting from more serious conspiracies, and we can say the word 9/11, I think, where people are saying, well, that's the ultimate conspiracy. And you're diminishing all the time and effort we spent over the last X number of years to talk about this. Like, dude, that's just some planes and some buildings.
Yeah.
This is way bigger.
Yeah.
Way physical. In fact, there's nothing other than the existence or the proof of other civilizations and or God. There is nothing bigger than this.
Yeah.
And so I don't have I can't criticize anybody though.
Yeah. Well, I know we're a little pressed for time. We probably got like another hour-ish, so I want to make sure Nick gets all the stuff in.
Hit me with whatever you got, Nick.
All right. Kind of rapid fire on questions. These are just things that popped into my head.
I will try to keep them as short as I can.
Let's start with this one.
No. Maybe.
If the Earth is flat, where do seasons come from?
Okay. So if we're living in a building, right? We're living in a basically, again, for your listeners, we're living in a snow globe or a pizza box, or we're living basically in a giant building with walls and a floor and a ceiling, right? Then everything is controlled and nothing is left to chance. Why would you leave anything to chance? You're living in a giant planetarium. So when it comes to heating and cooling, the thermodynamics of this place, it's first off, we'll address the sun first. If the sun and the moon are traveling above us like tiny little mobiles above a child's crib, right? The sun is tiny by comparison. The only reason we draw it about 1,000 miles wide on when we do illustrations is because if you drew it what we think it is, like 50 miles wide, you'd never see it. It'd be smaller than a freaking pixel. So we can't draw it that small. So the sun is giving off some heat, and it's traveling, and it's not taking the same path. It's kind of like a needle on a record. And I know this dates me. Back in the day, kids, when we had vinyl, the needle would go in as the song progressed, and it's sort of
the old gramophone.
Oh, God. Yeah. I know. It dates me so much. It's like the only people that use vinyl are DJs, and even then, not so many anymore. So, but it's also not the only heating source. So when it comes to the energy transfer, there's a wonderful story. If you haven't seen the documentary, I highly recommend it, but I'll tell you the story really quick before we do it, before we finish this question, which is the jet stream transfers huge amounts of air, right? The underwater conveyor system is the water system, which transfers huge amount, even more amounts of energy in water because it's dense, right? And if you want to see how that works, if you've never gotten the app, please look into the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app, which is absolutely fantastic. We worked on that app for a long time. I don't get a dime from it, but it shows some wonderful stuff. And Rob Skiba was the guy that figured out that when you take the Flat Earth map and look at the jet stream, everything runs in this wonderful, perfect circle through it, which could be how some of the planes are traveling from one distance to the other faster than what they should be, because we're pretty convinced there's some tailwinds which are faster than 100 miles an hour up there that they're getting a hold of. Because if you can get a tailwind of 200 plus miles an hour, you can go way faster. You're not breaking the speed of sound, because the plane's just being carried along. You're just on a moving walkway. But what was the thing I was going to mention? Oh, okay. So I want to mention this really fast. It's in the documentary, but it has to do with the heat transfer in the seasons, which was one of our guys back in the day. He worked for a guy that worked for NASA, and he was at one of their parties out in the Hamptons, and the power goes out. It was like a Christmas holiday. And of course, we're down to wine and candles. So all these NASA guys are talking, swapping stories, how that goes. And one of them says, yeah, so Frank, I hear that the GPS system, doesn't work out in Antarctica. And it's like, hey, Fred, I sent a team down there to confirm that. And then another guy who might as well be, one of the smoking men from X-Men or X-Files back in the day.
Yeah.
Because they're always smoking, right? He comes in, he goes, well, if he sends a team out that far, they're not coming back. And, one of our guys is like, why wouldn't he be coming back? It's like, is it too cold? It's like, well, because GPS doesn't work down there. There's no way to do anything. And he's like, why doesn't it work down there? Because it's too cold? He goes, no, because it's flat. Right.
Yeah.
And then that same guy proceeds to take a piece of chalk and on the granite floor starts drawing in this wine-induced rant and starts drawing the world out on the floor, on this granite floor. And it would have been the most wonderful movie pullout scene, because by the time he was done, when you zoomed out, you were looking at the UN flag.
Yes, the UN flag. Yep.
Yeah, the UN flag on the floor. And our guy, this was way before we were doing this. This was early 2000s when this guy saw this. And he didn't get it. He's in mid 20s. Because again, if you show flat Earth to somebody, no, of course, nowadays people kind of figure out, it's like, but you show somebody back then in his 20s, you draw out the UN flag for him, they don't think anything of it. And then years later, he's like, you can imagine right at home, right up. Yeah, it's like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What he wasn't talking figuratively. He was talking literally, because he was talking about the thermodynamic systems. And he said it basically, what the circle back to the seasons, everything is about energy transfer. Everything, and the sun only is one part of it. So the seasons are basically created artificially through a number of systems, through the jet stream, through the sun, through the underwater conveyor system, and even through some of the magma systems. But between that, it's just all set like a I don't know, like a pre-programmed timer.
It's like a clock hand that goes around.
Yeah. And you can set it to anything you want, but it's gauged that way. Oh yeah, and the moon has nothing to do with the tides. Because why would you? I mean, if the moon is only 50 miles wide, why would you give it this huge gravitational field? We would treat it no different than our simulations that we build now, which is a whole other thing. The civilization, we call it in games that we create physics engines. And when it comes to physics engines, the sky has nothing to do with the gravity. The gravity is just all created from the ground level. Yeah. It's like you drop something, it falls to the ground, and if the tides happen to sink, now do the tides sync up with the moon? Yeah, that's because the everything in the sky is just one giant, heavily ornamented clock system that predates language. That's all it is. The moon,
correlation and causation are not the same.
There's a correlation. It's like, oh, hey, the moon's here, the tide's here. Oh, the moon must be affecting the tides, or it's not. You're just,
well, it's sort of like when you're messing around with like the Unreal Engine. You insert the skybox like has a day-night cycle, like in Red Dead Redemption, but it doesn't have anything to do with like, if you drop a rifle in the game or get off the horse, they're not tied together. By the way, but they are synced up in order to create the
you get multiple gold stars. I have done hundreds of interviews. Not one, you were the very first person to ever mention the skybox system by name.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is,
I'm a nerd.
Yeah, because in computers,
I'm not married and I don't have kids, Mark. What can I tell you?
I've never been married and had kids either. I know exactly. I'm with you, brother. That's no, the
Shreks unite.
Yeah, the skybox system is how they create the sky. Everything in the sky looks like it's curved. You can draw spheres, you can draw anything up there. It looks wonderful and spherical, but it's all angled off. Computers can't draw circles. People forget that. It's like everything is angled because you can't teach a computer to draw anything but boxes.
That's why everything's pixelated.
Yeah. And because of that, the sky is just this giant rectangular box, and you simulate everything inside it to make it look like it's curved. Which is why, again, we'll get into it. Anyway, sorry. Next question. Go.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the sun.
Yeah.
If it's not 93 million miles away, right? If it's over us going in a perfect circle.
Right.
It's like, I guess there's two questions related to this.
Okay.
One, when it's directly over us, it's one size, but when it's setting and it's far away and it's moving away from us, it
gets bigger.
Why does it get bigger when if it's moving farther away, it should look smaller?
Okay. Well, it's part of the design of this place. And if you're a meteorologist or any meteorologists, probably don't because they're really boring, is that it's called atmospheric lensing. So if you meaning there's a thickness to our atmosphere that acts like water, which will change how you view things. So like at right now, again, it's 99.9% transparent, right? But at 10 miles, it's like 90%, and then it gets 80 and 70 and 60. But it also gains a thickness to it. And because of that, it will distort and act like a magnifying glass and make things bigger, depending, again, comes down to humidity, barometric pressure, temperature. And since it varies all the time, people can't figure out the connections, and they can't make, because, you know, once you start seeing the repetition, once you start seeing the patterns, everyone can figure it out. So how the system was designed was brilliant. So in like some desert sequences, I have seen the sun get smaller off into the distance. But if the atmosphere is really, really thick, and again, the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app, there's a whole sun section. In fact, I've got a playlist. Maybe I'll send it to you. I'll paste it in here. It's dedicated to suns. Here's really weird. If you have a special filter on your camera and you're at the beach and you're seeing the sun go off in the distance, it doesn't set. It gets to a point and then just fades away like a puff of smoke. It is the coolest thing ever. But to your eyes, to your naked eyes, it looks like it's setting, it's flattening out, and it's getting all weird and distorted, but it's actually not. And if you get a filter on your camera, it'll get smaller, but then it'll get to a certain size and it won't get any smaller, and it'll just do this. It'll go, it'll just weird. It'll go away. And it is, what was the initial question?
Well, that was actually, you were talking about, you were touching on my second question. The follow up to that was gonna be like, why does the sun look like it's setting then?
If
everything's flat.
In fact, that goes along with the ships going over the horizon, which is what's really changed. What the reason why the community has grown like it. I couldn't have done this 20 years ago. What's changed is HD camera technology.
Yep.
Back in the day when we were growing up, kids, you had a $3,000 Sony cam on your shoulder, and everything looked crappy. When you zoomed in. Now you can get a $500 off the shelf camera and a boat, which is gone now, right? It's like, oh, it's sail. You're waving at the boat. Oh, everybody. It goes off in the distance, right? You take your camera out, zoom, it pulls it back into frame. And then you can let it go again, and you can pull it back into frame again and again. And people, again, you can do this unless you mention flat Earth, people don't get it. It's like, look, eventually it has to be on the other side of the hill because of the curvature. And it's not anymore. And people can say refraction all day long. But if that's the case, then why do we see it with everything, including the sun? I mean, the reason why most people get into flat Earth is because of long distance photography with HD cameras now. I didn't tell them to do it in the clues. You can look at yourself. People just started running to the beach with cameras, started shooting long distance. Like, oh, look, that lighthouse is 50 miles away. I can see it. And they started calling me, and they're going, I can see blah, blah, blah. I'm going, and they go, well, that means it's flat. I go, you mean tabletop flat? And because I initially put out a model, I was using Orlando Ferguson's model, was from the 1830s, which looked like a roulette table. It had a little, it was kind of bulgy in the North Pole, but it actually did like a roulette table. And people were like, no, it's tabletop flat. Plus, you can't use the term roulette table. And I go, why? And they go, because all the numbers on a roulette table add up to 666. I go, is that true? And like, it is. It's absolutely
just like all the demon math for the Earth.
What?
Yeah, you take all the roulette numbers.
Almost lost my sanctification there.
Yeah, you add them up, it comes to 666.
Nick's gonna have to give up another thing for Lent.
Oh gosh.
By the way, it is also, meteorologists have for years and years, and only now are they starting to figure it out, why the moon, when it comes up over the horizon like a full moon, why it looks so huge on the hill when it's next to it. It's like, oh, it's perspective. It's because it's next to a mountain. And why it seems to get smaller when it's overhead. It's because of atmospheric lensing. It's because you're looking at it through a magnifying glass. If you want to have a trick, there's some wonderful tricks that David Weiss did on his channel, DITRH, Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole, which you can make things set depending on your camera technique. So you take a glass of water and like at the edge of a table and put a flashlight behind it and move that flashlight to the other end of the table.
Yep.
You can make the flashlight set. Even though the flashlight is still on a table, has not moved, it's still horizontal. Or go even better, if you have the access, go to any gymnasium, take a basketball on the floor, put the camera right on the floor, roll the ball to the other end of the floor, watch what happens. That ball will set depending on where you are. You can do it with footballs, you can do it with soccer fields, and forget it. I mean, if you get to a point where you're outside and you're having to deal with heat waves off the road, oh yeah, then it just gets nightmarish. So
and the perspective of objects underwater. Like if you're trying to spearfish or if you're trying to shoot something underwater, or if you're just trying to grab something underwater, depending on the light and where it is, it's like it's offset from where
Oh,
it
dude,
is. because
we've all done it. I mean, take any
Yeah.
glass of water and stick any, I don't know, a fork, a straw, whatever,
Yeah.
into the glass of water. I mean, and then look down. It absolutely will bend everything.
Uh-huh.
So there you go.
Let me ask so what do you guys think of it so far?
Yeah, not bad, right?
Yeah, if you're liking this, let us know what you think in the chat. Tell us what
Mhm.
you're getting out of this interview. Really glad you're still here. We've got more to come. So what you've heard, you're going to hear just that much. You're going to hear all new content here in just a couple seconds. We're going to play the other half of the interview. But before we do that, real quick, we wanted to mention how you can support the channel and help us grow and get more guests and bring you more great interviews like this. Head on over to patreon.com/the Gosslings. Or you can scan the code.
Yeah, scan the QR code. It's a cool little feature. The Patreon is this awesome thing. We are building an amazing community of super cool, friendly, fun people who are all kind of into the same sorts of things. And it's really fun because like no one agrees on everything, but like no one ever fights about anything.
Yeah, no one ever fights about it.
Not even the rapture.
Oddly enough.
Yeah.
So if you love talking about the rapture but not fighting about it, head on over to patreon.com/the Gosling.
It's a lot of fun though. We have multiple tiers for you, so if you just want to know what our guest list is for the Goslings as far as interviews go for the foreseeable future, then we have that tier. But if you want to say have your product sponsored, if you want to have us mention your product, if you want, a free t-shirt, if you want free swag, if you want discounts on merchandise, if you want access to behind the scenes content, if you want digital downloads.
And if you are really enjoying this particular episode, there is some exclusive content that we did just with this guest, just for our Patreon members, and you'd be able to hear that too. And typically that's the stuff we're not allowed to say on YouTube.
So if you find this interview maybe a little too YouTube friendly or prosaic, you're like, man, I wish they'd talk about that naughty stuff. Guess what? We probably have.
Get down and dirty over at Patreon.
We do. Yeah. And Patreon members usually get access to that stuff before everybody else does because it's unedited.
Like a week in advance.
Yeah. And it's usually a good chunk of the interview. It's very rare.
Usually, sometimes the whole thing. Everything.
Oh my gosh,
exclusive content and everything.
Yeah.
A week in advance. You can sign up at patreon.com.
And a lot of times it ends up being like half an hour's worth of material.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it's worth it. Go to Patreon, go to patreon.com/the Goslings, scan the QR code, check it out. Ask some people in the chat, dude, they're almost always in here talking. They're super
we got some patrons watching right now.
Yeah.
Ask them what they think.
Yeah.
Ask them what they get out of it.
Yeah. And if they tell you that it sucks, come let us know.
Just kidding. I'm going to mail them something.
That's right. You're getting an exclusive gift.
Where's
Shelby?
Yeah, where's Shelby? Hey, tell us about your book real quick.
Oh, yeah. So this channel actually got started because Nick and I are a couple of writers.
Yeah.
We're a couple of Christian authors. We write fiction. I wrote the Heavenly Realms series, which you're seeing the QR code for the first book in the series up on your screen right now. It's called Empyrean Falling, and it is about angelic warfare. It is basically, I think, Nick, you described it best as it's like 300 meets the Book of Revelation.
Yeah, Gettysburg, 300, and the Book of Revelation all in one
blended
story.
together into one meat pie.
It is epic. It is literally the definition of the word epic. It reads like that. The story's built out like that.
And it's a lot of fun. And there's a 7-novel series. It's available, just like all these that we're about to tell you. They're all available in paperback, ebook, and audiobook. And some of Nick's that we're going to talk about, I think, maybe available in hardcover.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. No. I'll tell you about mine. So,
okay.
Henry Half Moon. This is the book that I like to mention. It's about a young NYU student.
Yeah.
Who doesn't believe in God, but he's called by gods he doesn't even believe in to cross over into the other dimension and battle a new invasion of a new kind of species of demon called the Algalim.
Yeah.
That are trying to restore the Anunnaki and bring about the
so if you're
beast.
into like all the cool, weird, esoteric stuff that
supernatural
we talk about,
stuff, yeah.
If you're like, dude, I love Gary Wayne, I love Derek Gilbert, like I love Ryan Pitterson, I love all these cool people that like talk about all this weird stuff. You're gonna like Henry Half Moon.
Yeah, and ultimately it's a faith journey, even though it weaves in Greek mythology, the occult, ancient Sumerian.
Yeah.
It's mixing all of those things in together. But Henry actually goes through a faith journey, and if you're a believer in Christ, I think you're really gonna like how it ends.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
So, well, that's all we got. I hope you guys enjoy those books. If you get one, let us know.
Yeah.
And we're going to get back to the interview here, and we'll catch up with you guys on the back end of the interview.
Enjoy.
See you soon. The moon in particular looks way closer than what I'm told.
Then 200, and we'll just round up to 240,000 miles.
Yeah, it looks like it's just
and
right
by
there.
the way, that also leads into the you're still recording, right?
Oh yeah.
It leads into the Artemis Project, the Moon 2.0 project, which is the footage that was beamed back from Artemis was horrible. In fact, we comment, it's like, look, we can shoot, which leads to your question. It's like, why can we shoot better footage from here of the moon than what you were delivering at point blank range?
Yeah.
And not only that, I'm still blown away, which why the general public does not pick up on this, which was days and days of footage from Artemis and not a single star in space. Not one. We could shoot the moon with stars all day long, but you're telling me, but when you get up into space, and I know that you could use the excuse from Apollo that you could use exposure settings as an excuse why there were no stars from any of the Apollo missions. That's fine. That's actual film. Now everything's digital, and everybody's got cameras that rival what Predator had. Right. I'm not kidding. With multiple filters. In fact, we have a Predator Vision video on our channel, which was someone was doing the moon temperature thing, and because the moon generates a cold light, which is a whole nother thing. And you're saying so the Artemis Project, nobody wanted to change the filters at all or the contrast or whatever. You're just never going to show stars in space, and the reason why is, even now, they're scared to death of screwing up the rendering, meaning the stars have to be, remember, everything's time and date stamped, have to be in a certain place at a certain time. So the Belt of Orion has to be there at this particular time and place. And if it is not, well, then you get a problem. Then you got nerds that are going to, at 3 a.m. in their underwear in Nebraska are going to be like, oh, wait, where are you guys?
Tennessee, you're good.
Oh, okay, you're fine. Yeah, in Nebraska, they're going, hey, that's not right. I should post something about that, and then it's over. So yeah, it just blows me away that Artemis has got away with what they did. Now, granted, it was unmanned, so you could get away with it. But yeah, I can't wait to see what happens when they try to put people in that thing and try to fake the moon mission. I just can't wait. We're gonna destroy it. Absolutely destroy it. Anyway, go on. What do you got?
So my next question is, where are all of these SpaceX satellites going?
Okay. First things first, when it comes to satellites, most of them are suspended by, it's going to sound weird, suspended by balloons, which is NASA is the largest producer and consumer of helium in the world. A lot of people don't know that. This is not secret information, by the way. You can, and they've been launching the high altitude balloon projects by NASA have been launching since the 50s. Go figure, since NASA was created in 1959. And they can launch payloads of upwards of 4 tons and keep them up there for a very, very long time. And as you know, recently we had to deal with that whole balloon incident, which I love the fact that people are like, wait, there are satellites on balloons. That helped us in so many ways, because there's so many people like, there's no satellites on balloons. It's like,
thank you for mentioning that, because when we saw the close-up of the balloon in the air and the thing that was attached to it, it looked peculiarly like a satellite.
Like the International Space Station.
It looked like that too.
No, I'm not saying I believe.
I got you.
Let's not get carried away.
If you can put up, and there's videos on my channel showing it, because there was a famous one where a 4-ton satellite that caught a crosswind and just took out a couple SUVs on the way out. I'm pretty sure it was damaged before it went up, and they had to make it come down. But if you can launch a satellite that's 8,000 pounds, right, with a balloon, why would you need rockets? Well, it's not cost effective. I mean, balloons are pennies on the freaking dollar.
Compared to jet fuel. And the 400,000 Sidewinder missiles, the $400,000 Sidewinder missiles, you just shoot them down.
Well, there's that. So, go ahead.
Well, so like, is there a difference in gravity between way up there where satellites are supposed to be, self-suspended in orbit, and here?
It's there's some debate on that. So the question is, let's get into the gravity versus density, right? And I disagree with some people. It's kind of like there's some people in our community, it's like dome or no dome, right? And most of our people believe in dome, but there's like 20-30% that actually don't believe in a dome because they don't want to be all fenced in, man, be all kept and bring down. Whatever. It's usually the artistic community. It just drives me nuts. It's like, why are you confining us, man? It's like, come on.
Just wanna
Not
be
harshing on
free.
not harshing on your mellow, man.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Dirty hippies.
Yeah, I know. Freaking hippies.
Freaking hate
Like,
hippies. Me
go
and
eat-
Cartman and you.
Go eat some patchouli. So no. So when it comes to gravity, do I believe in gravity? Yes, I do. And that is because even though there's density, and the argument there is if you take any ball, volleyball, beach ball, and you put it underneath the water and you let it go, it pops back up. Why? Was the ball defeating gravity? No, it's because it was less dense than the water that was around it. You can do that with anything. A helium balloon technically is less dense, and so it rises, right? However, if you put things in a vacuum, they still fall. So there's got to be something there. Now, what I love about the whole gravity argument is science can't tell you. Neil Tyson, the world's most famous scientist currently living. We're not going to talk about the old guys. Talk about there's 3 media scientists in the world, by the way. The only 3 guys they put on camera: Neil deGrasse Tyson from America, Brian Cox from the United States, from England, and Michio Kaku from Japan. And that's it. Bill Nye does not count. He's got a bachelor's degree in mechanical. He became an actor in Seattle. I know. I'm from Seattle. I know.
He's not a scientist.
He's not a scientist. Not
Right.
even close. But he looks the part. And I love the fact I've talked to producers. I go, why do you keep putting Neil on freaking television? It's like, because he looks like a scientist.
You did a great video about the lab coat.
It was true. Thank you for that, by the
Yeah.
way. But it was true, and we've done it. We in our some of our LA groups, they will go down to corners in Los Angeles wearing lab coats and carrying clipboards, and people will talk to them all day long. Won't harass them at all, because if you're wearing the coat, you're immediately more credible. You're wearing the coat, you're obviously more intelligent than me.
So we live just south of Nashville, and a couple months ago, just to tie into that, I took my family again. We went down to the U.S. Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville, which is about maybe an hour and a half from where we live. And it's cool. We got all the rockets there and all the exhibits and everything. And during that day that we were down there, they had some ex-astronauts and old retired NASA employees standing in front of the Saturn rocket, talking to people and telling them about, hey, I was on the space shuttle. I worked in Mission Command, and just sharing stories with the public that day.
The space shuttle, also known as Deep Sea.
Well, here's the thing. All of those astronauts and retired NASA employees were wearing lab coats. They were all wearing lab coats. And I'm like, wait a minute. Why are you wearing lab coats? You weren't wearing them when you were working for NASA.
Yeah.
Why are you wearing them now? It's the code of credibility. NASA is, people forget that NASA was built on the still burning embers of the Nazi war machine, right? I mean, they were Nazi scientists. Werner von Braun, normally, isn't it weird about war? You can be a war criminal unless you're really intelligent. Then you're an asset. Yeah. Then you're hired. Yeah. Then it's like, oh no, you're working for us now. And it's like, oh no, war crimes, no, you can hang and shoot those people. They're fine. Yeah. You guys, though, we're gonna put you in lab coats and you're gonna work for our stuff. And
we'll give you redemption. Come work for America.
Werner von Braun, there you go. Which I love. Soviets got half, we got half. NASA is DoD the entire way. They don't shoot guns. They smile for the camera. They wear white. But Werner von Braun, if you didn't catch that in the clues, which I loved, it was one of my little gems that I found, was that his headstone, his gravesite, which I thought, again, would have been this towering cement thing with a rocket behind him pointing to the stars. No, it's this little headstone, the year he was born and the year he died, and a Bible verse, which said Psalms 19:1. I didn't know what Psalms. I had to look it up. Psalms 19:1, and the firmament shows his handiwork. Why would the founder of NASA be talking about a dome above the earth on his grave? Why? There's no reason for that to happen. None whatsoever. And those little things he slipped in there, which he knew the real deal, but he was willing to go along with it. So anyway,
especially after they were shooting nuclear nuclear missiles up at the firmament.
Oh
right?
yeah. The other thing, which again, secret stuff, which wasn't so secret. You could look it up. The High Altitude Atomic Weapons Program, which again, it's so us. It's so guy. It's a guy thing to do. It's like you find a barrier, right? What's the first thing you get the cannon? Right?
Yeah.
The first thing you're gonna do, you're just gonna start shooting at it.
See if
It's
we
like,
can break it.
and then it goes into what is that? The Fifth Element. It's like what do we got bigger than blah blah blah, right?
Yeah.
Because then you start firing their first 3 shots that they used. Their first 3 aerial shots were low megaton, and this was back when megaton was a pricey option, right? Megatons wasn't something you could pick up at the 7-Eleven. Megaton was a really really expensive thing to do, and the first 3 shots, if you can't break through something with megaton, well, that's it. Then you're not getting through it. Not with that. And so everything after that was medium kiloton, in the 50 to 200 kiloton range. And I knew exactly what they were doing. They were painting the sky. They were basically using atomic weapons as paintballs, trying to map out. It's like, all right, how big is this thing? Because we're militarizing space, which they did immediately after those first 3 shots. And then they're like, okay, because we need to figure out how high the rockets can go before we need to start arcing them over, so that we don't run into it. Yeah, and then you militarize space. People say, well, why did it take so long for private companies to get involved? Like Blue Horizon or Virgin Galactic or SpaceX. And that is because you want to control those industries as much as possible. You can't. People forget that NASA is a collection of parts. Right, NASA doesn't build their stuff. They get all their parts from Lockheed Martin and Boeing and General Dynamics and all those guys. And so you don't want Boeing teaming up with somebody later and doing their own thing. You don't want Boeing and Frito-Lay getting together. It's like, we're going to put Doritos logo on the moon. You don't want that to happen, because all of a sudden those rockets start crashing. And it's like, what's wrong? What are we doing wrong? And then, you have questions, and you don't want that. So what else you got?
It's a great question. So I'm just trying to organize my thoughts here.
Yeah.
In the exclusive segment, we were briefly talking about, a long list of very recognizable, famous people, celebrities, so forth.
Yeah.
That are either closet or public flat Earth folks.
Right.
If you're right, and if satellites stay up there with help of balloons, then Elon Musk would have to be in on it, right? He'd have to understand, or does he not understand?
There's certain people you don't. Okay, compartmentalization, which is a military protocol type thing, which is it's need to know. So you only let the people know that absolutely have to know. So the Apollo astronauts, I believe, were told, not only are you going to fake it, but here's why. And they all turned into freaking basket cases. They drank and they didn't do anything. So nowadays they treat them like spies, which is, and we'll get to the Elon part in a second. So a spy, for example, you've seen the movie. It's like, okay, spy, you're going to go to this hotel. You're going to open up this bathroom window, the guns in the bathtub. You're going to shoot this guy coming out of this limo across the street at this particular, time. That's all you get to know. You shoot it, you drop the gun, you leave, we'll clean up the hotel room. You don't get to know the backstory. You don't get to know the political intrigue. They don't care. It's above your pay grade. So when people say, not even Elon Musk, let's use Neil Tyson, right? Does Neil Tyson have to know? No. If it was me, and again, I'm going to treat it like I'm wearing a black hat. I like putting myself in their shoes.
Okay.
Which is, if I was a black hat, no, you want Neil doing exactly what you want him acting as naturally as possible, because people can kind of pick up on the BS. There's some people that have BS meters that are better than others. You want Neil up on stage doing his snappy song and dance. He's basically just a science Jack in the Box, which is like, his face is amazing. That's what he does. He doesn't debate. He doesn't do any of that crap. He's got great stage presence, and he's perfect for what he does. I don't even know who would replace him if he died. So Elon Musk, same sort of thing. He is a freaking government tool. That's all he is. I mean, again, most Americans don't even know he's South African. It's like, oh no, my own brother-in-law. He's like, oh no, he's a genius. He's absolutely always one. It's like, and the media was very good in that they tried to turn him into Tony Stark.
Yep.
And for lack of better, they almost
he basically is. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he, for God's sake, he did a cameo in Iron Man 2. Don't think that was an accident. He was there in the French Riviera during that whole, was it Monaco or the French Riviera? The whole speed race thing. He was there in the restaurant.
Yep.
And you don't need him to know anything. Sorry, I've got a pet peeve. I wrote a whole chapter on him in my one of my books, which was he is a complete and total fraud. Everything he says, they let him make outlandish claims because he's a billionaire, and if you're a billionaire, you've automatically got street cred. So therefore, because he obviously knows more than me, he's got a freaking $1 billion.
Right.
But everything he did, everything he said he was going to do, he never ever did. And I just kept calling him out on it. It's like he got on my radar when he said that, in 2017, when he said, oh yeah, I'm going to send 2 tourists around the moon at the middle of 2018. And I'm looking at my calendar going, wait, what sort of timeline is this? You don't have a rocket. You don't have a capsule. You don't have a crew. You're going to do this in 18 months? It's like, yeah, I'm gonna solve the Puerto Rico power problem after the hurricane with my special solar things. No, I'm gonna save those kids with my special in the cave with my special super submarine. No, I'm gonna do an underground bullet train from Los Angeles to San Francisco. No, I'm gonna do a special plane that's gonna go from United States to China in 2 hours and cost like as much as a coach ticket. No, this goes on and on and on. So. When and the Tesla Roadster in space, that was the big thing for me. If you remember the little
I do, yeah. Talk about that.
The convertible in space, which was I remember I was living in Canada when that thing came out. Somebody sent me a screenshot from it, and I thought it's like, who did this? I go, Jared, do this. I go, who photoshopped this, right? And they go, no man, that's a live feed link, and I'm going, what? That can't be. There's no Roadster freaking hovering around space. So I click on this thing and I'm looking, I'm going, how is this possible? I go, first off, there's everything about it. Physics was wrong. You got these massive temperature swings supposedly in space, right? 250 above, 250 below. I go, the windows would have spider webbed, the front window would have cracked, the tires would have detonated because the pressure difference, vacuum, they would have blown up, the fiberglass would have been shredded. And then everything would have just been, anything was absolutely pristine, and it had 3 perfect HD cameras in position, and it's doing this spinning thing as it's going around the world. I was going, what in the? And what got me though, it wasn't the physics, it was the lack of branding. It was like they were nervous to do it. You look it up if you get a chance. There isn't a single logo on it. Remember, it's a public company and a private company. That thing should have looked like NASCAR. You guys know, I know where you guys live. You know what NASCAR is. That thing should have been wall-to-wall endorsements, right? Yeah. And there wasn't a single logo. It's like, are you kidding? Put a giant Tesla thing on one side, a giant SpaceX on that. Even the mannequin didn't have any logos on it. Yeah. And then I thought, wait a minute, why are you using the convertible? Your flagship is the S model. I go, just put an S model in there and set up the cameras inside the car. In fact, you could have put the 4 seats. You could have subcontracted those out to Disney.
Mickey Mouse and Luke Skywalker, and
no, make it easy on yourself. Make Stormtrooper, Boba Fett, Groot, and Iron Man, because they own all 4 of them. Disney does, and the thing would have paid for itself. No, none of that. And then all of a sudden, after they're spinning around, they're going, "Oh, we're going to send it to Mars now, and we're going to turn off the camera because why? Well, because we're out of battery. Good night, everybody." And that was it. They cut transmission. It's like, you had crystal clear transmission. You're not even going to attempt transmission.
Yeah, just let it ride. Yeah.
Just let sucker go. Let the thing static out. No, we're not going to do it. And I talked to producers and I said, look, this thing's absolutely crap. Sort of like the Red Bull jump. I'll use the Red Bull jump as another example real fast, which is the Red Bull jump. The curvature on the outside was just ridiculous. It didn't make any sense. It's like, so the whole world is the size of Arizona, because he's only at 130,000 feet. I asked producers, I go, why are you using this shot? And they go, because it's a good shot. I go, but it's not real. It's not even remotely physically accurate. They go, yeah, it's not, but it's a good shot. And I go, and it leads into which you can apply to many, many things. And I'll get to your next question. But I want to end this part with this, which is there's a Mark Twain quote, which haunts me to this day because he's so right. And I do it myself, but I get it, which is never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Yep.
Meaning, the power of editing, the power of producers. Sometimes the truth is just boring and bland, and you got to spice it up a bit.
Yep.
And when it comes in, and that applies to the news as well. Yeah. The news is, some countries don't care. If you up in Canada, I lived a year in Canada, the news is really, really boring up there. They don't care. Americans, we want our money's worth. And so therefore, if it bleeds, it leads down here, and we will hype up the news.
This
and that
story brought to you by Charmin toilet paper and honey bunches of oats.
There you
know, so
yeah. And hell, one more real quick. If you guys are NFL fans, even now to this day, the Oliver Stone movie, one of his last.
Any Given Sunday.
Any Given Sunday,
dude. I couldn't care less about sports. I love Any Given Sunday. That is such an amazing movie.
Yeah.
That movie will make you care about sports. By the way,
the line in there which got me to this day, which is which I still apply to anyone that talks about the NFL. I go, when Al Pacino's sitting there at the bar and he goes, "The day they introduced the TV timeouts is when the game changed forever."
Yep.
Because they quietly, without any fanfare, it meant the corporations controlled the game now, not the coaches.
Yeah.
And if corporations control the game, that means they control the game.
They control.
And the first rule of entertainment is give the people what they want. Nobody wants blowouts. They want overtimes. They want their particular
bread and
sports
circus,
stars.
baby.
Oh man. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead. I ramble.
Good. That's all right. No, that was great. Yeah, that was awesome. I have two questions left. The first one is going to be pretty easy, and the second one, I want to leave a little more room for a broader answer because I think it's the most important question of all. Talk a little bit about in this model, this flat Earth model.
Yeah.
What are meteors? Where do they come from? How do they fall? Why do they fall?
Interesting. Yeah.
No, it's a good one. And that was one of the first questions I ever got back in 2015. And my co-host of the show, podcast I was doing at the time, he came up with actually a pretty good answer, which was, he goes, well, if the whole thing's artificial, then meteors are artificial too. He goes, it's no different than throwing a little pebble into an aquarium. And I go, and I go, flesh that out a bit. And he goes, well, think about it. He goes, what would it take to create meteors? Most of them don't land anyway, which we'll get to in a second. So most of them are just a light show, but some of them you'd have to actually make somewhat real. So, introduce some sort of metallic ore, whatever it is, with railgun technology, high speed, make sure it doesn't aim at any cities, which is weird, right? It's never going to hit a populated area, and that's it. Let the atmosphere do the rest. Maybe it'll burn up, which is why that thing in the Soviet Union or Russia a couple of years back got really close and it detonated over a populated area. Yeah, that wasn't very fun. But what I thought was interesting was, I go, yeah, I like that. I think that's good. That's how I would do it. And what I wanted to throw in though was, isn't it interesting that even though there are, what is it now? I think we're at about 6.3 billion smartphones out there. There's no videos of a meteor landing anywhere. Not talking about craters. Craters are one thing. You can see craters all day long. There's a big crater in Arizona I can drive you to. But actual something where don't give me a shooting star where it's like, oh, there it is. Okay, fine. Drive out there and show me where it hit. Right? You would think, remember, if the world is mostly water, that you'd have some sort of fishing boat hit, tracking something. It's like, oh, here it comes, boom, and it makes a big splash, and you never ever see it. You never even hear a rumor of it. Well, it's like you'd think that something, hit the water even the size of a Volkswagen at, I don't know, a couple thousand miles an hour, make a hell of a splash, but it never ever does. So when it comes to meteors, I think the short answer is I think they're artificial, and I think they are very carefully placed to where you don't get to see them, because that might give away some of the mystery,
some of the magic.
And again, we have billions of people supposedly running around. Nothing even comes close to them. Find me a story of somebody getting killed by a meteor. People get hit by lightning every year, all the time, but not meteors. Nope. Nope. Except in the movies, which movies are amazingly good at subliminal stuff, feeding into your head.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and programming ahead of time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Don't get me started there. By the way, since you guys know, if you watch any show, even going from all the way back to the 80s, and I am hyper aware of it now, every program and every movie, every television show, every movie that doesn't have anything directly to do with space, you will find globes in the background in different places for no apparent reason. I'm not talking about the globes in the corner of a classroom. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about a globe on the top of a detective's office in Chicago. That looks like it's been there for a long time, or a globe in this doctor's office, or a globe in this billionaire's office, and they're always in frame. It's not like it's just a glancing thing where it's like, oh, okay, there was for half a second. Oh, no, it's behind him while he's talking. There's no reason for it to be there. And most people, again, they'd never notice it in a million years. And it occurred to me because there was this one little short, I can't remember the video, where any producer will tell you, you can walk in to any show with money in hand and donate money to the show, right? You can walk into any television show, say, hey, I'd like to donate $10,000 to your show. And they'll say, what do you want for it? Right? Do you want an executive producer credit? What, because that's a minimum 50 or whatever it is. And all you have to do is say, no, I want to, because I'm an artist, whatever. I want to put a couple pieces and help set design this seemingly random room that doesn't have anything to do with car chases or anything like that. And they'll take your money. They'll absolutely be like, oh, okay, sure. If you do that with silent producers in the background, you can do so much damage. Because all you have to do is introduce various colored globes. You can have a whole van of freaking globes for any situation. No one will question you on it. It's like, oh yeah, we'll take your 20 grand. And if the show's a flop, no big deal. But if this show gets stuck on a cabinet somewhere, right, and that show runs for 6 years, oh, that is a huge return on investment. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. What's your next question?
Great answer.
I was trying to look it up, but I'm pretty sure like I would love to do a deep dive on like John Hughes movies, or like anytime like the son comes in to talk to the father, in the study, and get the fatherly, sage advice, guaranteed there's probably a globe.
Oh yeah. You'd be amazed.
Right over his shoulder, I'm sure.
It's every modern
you
show.
Just gotta love everybody, son.
And I see it every single time now. I mean, I'm so hyper aware of it. It's like, there it is. And it's like, it's in a room that it shouldn't.
It has no business being in. It's completely out of
context.
context.
There, but it's such a bland room. It's like somebody's study where there's going to be some dialogue, and it's going to be there's going to be dialogue there every episode.
Yeah.
And so why again, think about it. If you're a producer, why wouldn't you, if you're running a show, you'd take the money. And it's like, and in fact, you wouldn't even notice the change that they made to the room. You'd come in there, you'd have your set design person come in there. It's like, hey, it looks fine to me.
Oh, you wouldn't, you wouldn't notice it if it were there or if it were gone. It's so subliminal because
that's really awesome.
They indoctrinate you with it growing up. The second you get to kindergarten, there's
so we do a pizza movie night every Friday night, me and my kids.
Yeah.
And now I'm gonna be like, hey kids, let me know when you see a globe.
Please.
And I bet I will notice. I bet there's gonna be a globe in every flick we watch.
You will.
Forward.
You
and
wait.
I'm gonna be keeping a counter. I'm 1 for 1. I'm
especially television.
That'll be
shows.
interesting.
Yeah.
Especially television shows, because television shows run every week.
Yeah.
And again, it's a cheap, because remember, once you spend, the 20 grand for consistency and continuity, like let's say you give them 20 grand, right, to do a thing,
and
right?
You have to have continuity across seasons.
Exactly. So you don't have to pay 20 grand the next year or the year after that. That room stays the same. It's always there. And all you did was in fact, you make it easy on them. It's like, don't even make me an executive producer. Well, I'll be a silent producer. You just acknowledge that I donated this sort of money for tax reasons, blah, blah, blah. Be like, yeah, sure. Again, entertainment, they will take your money. Always they will take your money. They will never say, nope, sorry. And the only time I've even questioned is when the color palette was wrong. So you're not going to see a blue and brown globe in everything. Sometimes it'll be darker black. Sometimes it'll be gold. Sometimes I've even seen white in some cases, because they want the palettes to, sometimes you'll get a set design person. It's like, no, that clashes. Like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm getting at. Anyway, so what else you got?
So my last question.
Okay.
Why does or should it matter that the world be flat?
Well, you mean who cares? I mean,
Why should it matter to someone who's curious, about this, like theological implications? Why does it matter?
It doesn't. Good night, everybody.
That's a wrap.
Roll credits. That was a really, really great show. Thanks, guys.
Goodbye. Whoa, losing signal here.
And it goes a dial tone.
Coriolis Effect.
No. Okay, it doesn't matter until you start believing it. And it's not a cop-out answer. Meaning, it's kind of like trying to tell somebody after they've turned the age of 30 that they're adopted. Until they start believing it, it means nothing to them, right? And then once the second you start, it's like, no, I'm pretty sure you're adopted. I got some files here. I got a case of stuff. I got some eyewitnesses, blah, blah, blah. And you can keep throwing this at them. And then all of a sudden they have this moment of doubt, right? this one little moment, and it sneaks in, and all of a sudden it ripples in time backwards, to it's like, wait a minute.
The epiphany moment happens in the movie where it's like, all the things that I...
Yeah, who were those other people? Was I in a basket? That sort of stuff. Is there an orphanage? And then all this, was I Bruce Wayne? It's weird, right? Or no, was I Penguin? So, or every
Penguin,
other
Moses, Cobblepot,
Penguin.
whichever.
So, but it kind of goes with flat Earth in that, because people say, well, so what if it's flat Earth? I still have to go to my crappy job in the morning, and my kids don't listen to me, and my wife hates me, and blah blah blah. And it's like, yeah, you can say that all you want, but the second you start believing it, everything changes. It's kind of like, can we swear on the show?
A little bit. It's like a PG-13 show. Yeah.
Well, you've heard the saying, everything's, well, I'll use the boxing reference. I won't swear. Everybody's got a plan until they get hit.
Yep.
And that is, you can badmouth and talk smack about flat Earth all day long, but the second it starts clicking in your head, you are in real trouble, because then all of a sudden your perspective changes.
Yes.
So the first thing it does is, okay, the first thing is like, why should it matter? Let's give you the broad strokes real fast, which is the why not tell everybody? There's one of them. It's like, why not tell it? Why not? If you find out in 1960, if the government figures out in 1960, why don't you tell people? It's like, well, okay, there's 3 big reasons, right? And so you imagine the big X-Files smoking man table, everybody sitting around there smoking and talking like Batman, and it's like, why don't we tell anybody? Right? And then somebody says, well, okay, first thing, somebody like me, stay on the table. It's like, all right, I got a couple ideas for you. First is, every library and every university in every country has to be retooled from the ground up. And by that, I mean astronomy and astrophysics. Those are gutted for how long, we don't know. And then your remaining physical sciences, I don't know, geology, hydrology, archaeology, anything with an ology, those have to be rebuilt. Libraries have to be emptied. Yeah. And then rebuilt, because it means so many weird things. And that's just academia, right? Economics, you would have to suspend world markets, all of them, for months, because you don't know the impact. I mean, come on. The markets are so twitchy on everything that if you did something like this, there'd be some markets that would collapse, others would rise. It'd be a nightmare. Yeah. But the big thing would be the religious aspect of it, which is you're giving the 5 major religious houses of this world, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, and Christianity, all 5 of them leverage against science simultaneously. And you're also asking them to show restraint. Yeah. Oh, good luck. After they've been beating them over, science has been beating people over the head with textbooks for 5 centuries, at least. Right. That's not going to go well. And then the questions are never going to stop. It's like, you can imagine, right? Some theologians, they'll be like, so science, you were wrong about something really, really important. Let's start revisiting some of this other stuff, like, I don't know, evolution, carbon dating, the Big Bang, dark matter. You know what? Let's just
when does life begin, and when is it okay to terminate it?
Exactly. I mean, it would never end. Science would never be able to recover.
What's sex and what's gender? Is one of those maybe not real?
It would be a nightmare, a Pandora's box they could not close. But the short version is, if civilization, because remember, our best and brightest didn't figure this out until about 1960. We suspected, but until you know for sure, you don't know. It's sort of like the again, how everything gets real. Detectives will tell you that wives, when they're trying to figure out if their husbands are cheating, are in complete denial until it happens. Right? It's like, he's not, oh, there are the pictures. Damn it, he is. Right? That's so. In this case, if you don't figure this out, if our best and brightest suspect but don't figure it out until 1960, the short version is civilization's already been built. The cement is already hardened. Yeah. We can't change this now. We've got total control over this thing. Oh, we're going to keep this a secret for as long as possible. Does it matter back to your question though? Does it matter to the common man? Yes, it does. The biggest reason for me, and from what I've heard from other people, is that it changes the nature of the universe. So you are not this afterthought. You are not a residue of the Big Bang, that it's floating through space in multiple impossible directions, covered, and it's tiny little rock covered with a tiny bit of water and even less amount of air gas around it, and you could be snuffed out by any number of things at any given time, and that you are a complete accident. If you are living in a building, a structure, that means it was created, which means it was created by a creator, which makes things way, way easier and much more intimate. You are here for a reason. You are in this place for a reason. Do you get to find out the reason right away? No, of course not. But that's part of the journey. So
I like that.
So there you go. It doesn't matter until you believe it, but when you believe it, it changes everything. You are filled with a sense of peace, a sense of purpose. I have talked to many people that have said that they fell away from the church, me being one of them. I mean, I was into IT and tech support. I played video games for a living, and I was into everything that was science, right? I collected antique globes. Not kidding. You know, I had globes all over.
They are cool. Yeah, I mean, I don't believe it.
It's a cool icon. But when I got into this,
or an idol, perhaps.
There you go. It took people from what I've heard. They said they were 95% sure about God. Now they're 98%. You're saying, well, that 3% isn't much of a swing. Well, it is. It's a big swing. Because if at bare minimum the structure, if you are living in a structure, then it was built. And if it was built, then you can only go one of two directions. It's either built by an older civilization that's more powerful than ourselves, or the divine. And really at that point, you're kind of splitting hairs. Either way, whoever built this place is one step closer to knowing God's phone number than you.
Yes.
And that gives people a lot of comfort.
Yeah.
And so again, I've run into, I mean, for me, my spiritual journey has come full circle, where now it's like, no, I will never, will never question God again. Ever. So there you go.
Yeah. Amen.
That's great.
Mark Sargent, nailing it. That's awesome. I love it. It's so true, man, because like once you start understanding the deception, and Nick and I often talk about what we consider the great deception to be.
Sure.
Nick seems to be more along the lines that alien disclosure is going to be the great deception, and that's a good one. I tend to think more the heliocentric globe Earth model is the great deception. You could,
Well,
you could split a ham sandwich over which one of those is, more accurate.
Well, I mean, the globe seems to be, the biggest one. If everybody was fooled by it, and they were, I mean, the exception of, a tiny percentage, 1%.
Yeah.
Then there seems like the big one to me. Now, could you do a Project Blue Beam later and create another deception on top of it? Sure. But for me, the great deception is this, because it fooled everybody into where they live.
Yeah.
The Truman Show reference, which I mentioned in the documentary, stealing from the movie from 1998, which is, we believe the world that is presented to us. And if you are presented a lie constantly, it's a great deception. People think the great deception has to be something new and like in your face now. It's like, it just happened 2 hours ago because it's great. No, a great deception is something that's so large that not only did you fall for it, it was your parents and their parents and their parents and their parents going back generation after generation. You didn't have a chance. You were born into it. You could wake up and ask your great grandfather, hey, what about this flat earth? And it's like, nope, not flat. For whatever reasons. So for me, the great deception is it's the most likely candidate we have right now.
Well, it's an institutional pillar,
right?
Like you've been describing. So many things hang off of it. But once you start questioning that, then you start questioning, well, why does NASA need to have 20 or 60 billion dollars a year every year to not like actually do anything, and Neil deGrasse Tyson's like, oh, well, we have the pencil because of NASA, we have whatever GPS because of NASA, and it's like, okay, great, but like, dude, this much money every year, it kind of seems like a shell game, and then you start questioning like, well, why does the Antarctica Treaty exist? It's like the only thing that the United Nations can agree upon, and the flat Earth, flag, or the flat Earth model is their flag, and like, what's going on?
The Antarctic thing, which we didn't really touch on, but I should bring up really quick, which is it's the only unbroken treaty in the history of treaties, and not only that.
Why, Mark Sargent? Why is that?
Wait, well, because Antarctica, well, yeah, in a short version, if you are looking at the flat Earth is the UN flag. By the way, the UN flag is missing one very specific thing, which is Antarctica. It's like, why would you leave off an entire continent?
Unless
Well,
it's the
because we don't
wind.
want anyone to talk about it. It's the wreath. It's the wreath going around the outside. And it's like, but people's like, well, no, because you couldn't fit Antarctica out the way you laid it out. It's like, then lay it out differently.
Yeah, just
You
do
know,
it.
you don't have to lay it out that way. There's plenty of maps that have Antarctica on it, but you decide not to. But the big reason is you don't want people there for the loose end side of things. Imagine again, part of my the Illuminati meetings I have to attend. The one of the meetings is, okay, why lock down Antarctica? It's like, okay, well, here's one. Oil and gas companies, they have huge amounts of liquid resources. They have gobs of cash. I mean, come on, they can start fracking in your backyard tomorrow if they wanted. They could make that happen and have in a lot of cases. It's like, oh no, we can absolutely frack. We can break the rules. We just throw truckloads of money at people and they take it. Imagine.
Yeah.
But those same companies aren't even allowed. This is the one that turned me. Not only are they not allowed to set up shop in Antarctica, no corporation is.
Yeah.
They're not even allowed to talk about it. That's the part that gets me. The Antarctic Treaty, it's not that it's unbroken, it's that it's not even contested.
Yeah.
British Petroleum, a great example. It's like, British Petroleum after the war, I mean, they need the resources. It's like British Petroleum should have been running full page ads in the London Times every freaking month saying how great it would be for us to start setting up exploratory, oil and gas research in Antarctica. They're not even allowed to do that. That doesn't happen unless national security steps in, where you have one guy going into the president or the board or whoever runs the show, and you say, okay, so national security, you're not doing anything down there ever. Okay. And if you think about it, we'll stop you. And if you quit or retire, whatever, give them our card and we will talk to them. And we make sure that doesn't happen. And the reason why is because an oil and gas company, think about it again, the Illuminati meetings, you have they start setting up shop, and then all of a sudden there's a snowstorm and a plane goes off course, way off course, and then they see something they probably shouldn't. Well, that's a loose end. And then all of a sudden this meeting turns out like, what about a helicopter? What about this? And all of a sudden somebody at the end, it's always some guy at the end, it's like, just lock it down. Nobody goes there.
Yeah.
Where nobody,
which has happened, by the way. Like, there are accounts of like people flying over the wrong parts of Antarctica.
Oh yeah.
And like
they
seeing
vanish.
things they shouldn't see.
You don't go there. The same thing applied to backtrack a little bit with the Apollo missions and the stars. Yeah. Which is, you got these meetings back in the 1960s. It's like, well, how do we have the Orion belt lined up here? Blah, blah, blah. The nerds arguing over each other. It's like, well, the precession and how everything's going to, start working in Greek metaphysics. And then some guy at the end, it's like, dude, just freaking black it out.
Yeah.
Make it so easy.
No stars.
No stars. And it's like, okay.
Oh,
and how somebody asked for stars, what do we say? Well, it's an exposure setting. Same thing. Sorry, real quick, because I love beating up Apollo. With the space suits, any pressurized anything soft in a vacuum chamber expands until it bursts. That basketball, football, volleyball, take your pick. Right? There's only one thing in the history of anything that's never done that, and that is the spacesuits from any program, including NASA. The early NASA spacesuits, not a secret, were plastic and metal, and they looked like a B-movie nightmare. They were walking around. It's like, how are these guys even going to be climbing ladders? And you guys are going, ladders, dude. The size of the spaceship we'd have to build. And then some genius at the end of the table goes, as far as I know, nobody takes physics classes in high school. What if we just run a freaking soft suit and then put it on television? Anyone going to question it? It's like, well, what if they question it? It's like, how many people could that possibly be? We'll say, well, the secret's in the backpack. We're going to tell them what the backpack, nope, that's classified.
Yeah. National security.
National security, and that's it. And again, because when I'm out of country, back before the pandemic, I would ask people, I go in this side of the United States, I get it. Why do you believe the Americans went to the moon? Wave the flag, rah, rah. We're the best,
America.
Right? Yeah, America. Right. But I go, why do you people in whatever European country, we'll just say Sweden, why do you Swedish people think the Americans went to the moon? Everybody said the same thing. It's like, well, because it was on television. And the American news wouldn't lie. And they were absolutely dead serious when they said that to me, and I
Wow.
couldn't help myself. I'd be like, "Come on!"
Yeah.
I go, "We lie about everything. That's what we
Yeah.
do." Real quick, sorry, one more side story, which is this will give you kind of an idea. Which was when I was in back before I was doing Flat Earth, I went because I wanted to visit the pyramids, and because people said if you stand by the pyramid, you understand that we had nothing to do with the building of that thing at all. Especially if you're next to Cairo, which is literally a dumpster fire.
Uh-huh.
And I'm there, and I'm going over to the Queen's Temple, and there's all these kids, grade school kids, running around me, and they're looking at me, and they're like tugging on me and stuff. I'm going, what? Tour guide. It's like, what the hell's with the kids, right? It's like, oh, we're the first American or first white American they've seen outside of television. And I go, and they go, well, you're part of the new world. I'm going, okay, we don't call that anymore. But and I go, and they're like, you're like a rock star. And I go, okay, what shows are you watching over here? You know what shows they watch?
Shrek. No, I'm just kidding.
Dallas, Dynasty, Falcon's Crest, Knots
Whoa.
Landing, where everybody's incredible millionaires. The only problems they have usually is who's cheating on who. And I'm going, wait, those are the only shows you guys are watching? It's like, well, they're the only ones the Americans are putting out over here. I'm going, that's genius.
That's so smart.
Freaking genius.
That's some Benny Gesserit move right there.
The last part I want to say about this is there's a wonderful video out there. If you've ever seen it, it doesn't matter if you're into rock music or not. It's by a German band called Rammstein.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called We're All Living in America.
Mm-hmm.
And what they did was they recreated in a burned out German factory the entire Apollo setting, weaved down to the freaking astronaut uniforms, which they actually purchased, not the full blown suits, but the outer shell purchased from the actual company that made it. And it is color palette perfect.
Really?
Absolutely color palette perfect. But the point is that while they're jamming out on the moon's surface, right, they're broadcasting to all these countries, and while they're doing it, showing that basically America can project any image it wants anywhere, and people will buy it because it's on television. And sorry, the last part of this, which is there was a quote from the song which I loved so much, which was America got so good at it, and they were talking about we're living in America. It's Coca-Cola and sometimes war. And it's like, oh, that's so perfect because it is
the American way.
Yeah, it is our branding. Our branding is everywhere. But by the way, if you have something that we want,
you put a boot in your ass. It's the American way. Yeah. Let's get Toby Keith up there wrapped in a big Coca-Cola flag.
Yeah. Sorry. Another quick side Coca-Cola thing. So Coca-Cola, been around forever. Back in the day when they used to. Okay, two parts to this. One was I dealt with a company that made the high fructose corn syrup for Coca-Cola in North Carolina, and I said, oh, isn't that funny? Back in the day they used to use coca leaves and because there was cocaine, there were trace amounts of cocaine. He goes, what do you mean used to be? And I go, well, you don't do it anymore. He goes, dude, he goes, we absolutely still put coca leaves in Coca-Cola. He goes, but because it's below the FDA threshold of ingredients that you have to announce. And remember, it has to be a certain percentage before you put it on the can. And he goes, we create piles and piles of low-grade cocaine at our factory. When we make the syrup, I go, what do you do with it? He goes, we have to keep it in a vault. And then the government comes by and takes it once a month. And it takes this pile of cocaine.
Wow.
I go to destroy. He goes, yeah, to destroy. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, to destroy.
Sure.
But the other part was in World War II. I'm so full of trivia. In World War II, we had a Coca-Cola factory in Berlin, right?
Mm-hmm.
But because Coca-Cola is, America, red, white, and blue, except for the blue, that's Pepsi. They didn't want to lose the factory. Again, money rules all, right? So magically, within a week's time, they tore down all the Coca-Cola banners. And you know what was born right then and there? Fanta soda, yes. in purple and orange. And that factory, as far as I know, did bang up business for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Just to keep the machine going. So,
that's awesome. I never thought about the Hegelian dialectic of Pepsi being blue and Coke being red and white. Yeah, that's interesting because during the Pizza Hut, when we were kids, like the Coke Pepsi wars of the
Mm-hmm.
late
Yeah.
80s and early 90s.
Yeah.
You know, the Pepsi challenge and
Oh yeah.
yeah, all that stuff. Man,
Yeah.
Hegelian dialect. What is it?
It's Luciferian.
There we go.
There it is.
Mark
There
Sargent,
it is.
this has been awesome, man. I'm so sorry we're pressed for time. We got to
No.
jet in a minute
Hey,
here.
no. I'm just glad I could do it today. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There was an
I am
email
too.
screw-up.
Thank you.
It's been
Yes.
awesome. Yeah, it's been fun.
This
Cool.
has been
Yeah.
so cool.
You've had great answers to my questions.
yeah.
You give me a lot to
Well,
think about.
if you need anything else, a quick plug. I don't do a long plug.
Yes.
If you guys need to look me up for any reason, just go into any search engine. I don't care what it is, and type in Flat Earth Mark. You will find me. Eventually, you'll find the rabbit holes and go down. I am not the only person by a long shot that makes content. There are tons and tons of people that make great content out there. Got a couple of books on Amazon, the Netflix documentary, which I think is only on Amazon now.
Mhm.
But just again, go into YouTube, type in Flat Earth Mark, you'll find my stuff.
What are the names of your books, real quick?
There's Flat Earth Clues, The Sky's the Limit. That's on Amazon. Flat Earth Clues, End of the World. I'll play on words there. That's on Amazon. And then I wrote a survival guide as we were going into the well, actually, I wrote it before the pandemic, but my publisher says, "Oh yeah, I'd put it in there because who knows what's going to happen now." And it's called Empty Shelves. How
Nice.
to survive your corner of an American apocalypse. It's only meant for Americans. So, because I can't really speak for other countries, it's like whatever they do in an apocalypse.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
But it's general stuff. It's not like how to beat zombies or aliens,
Right.
Right.
or zombie aliens or reverse vampires or anything like that. It's strictly long-term power outage. So if you have a long-term power outage,
Nice.
hey, have some.
You know, that's a
Prescient.
smart move, Mark, because, everybody says that that's like the deadliest thing. If the power grid goes down for, 2-3 months, you're losing like 70-something% of the population.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
that's a very, very wise
Well,
addition
I
to the
mean,
conversation.
thanks. I mean, it is, but for me, I don't attend all the meetings, but I attend some of them, which is you can't let the power is the last thing to go out because they've gotten so good at the narrative. Meaning, as long as these are functioning, these are functioning, then you've got control of the narrative.
Mhm.
They can push out whatever they want to all the phones. I mean, come on, there's more smartphones. More people have smartphones than have running water. Wow. So with
Jeez.
that in mind, I mean, you can do whatever. So the power grid, when it goes, well, then everyone's on their own. But until then, you can basically push. You can kind of steer people the way you want.
Wherever you
Come on,
need to.
Yeah, there's a lot of idiots out there, as you know. I've met a lot in the last 3 years, and it's been disheartening. So
No shortage of those.
no.
Mark Sargent, Flat Earth Clues, Mark Sargent, YouTube. Anywhere else where people can find you before we let you go, so that we can point you in the right direction?
Again, just wherever you are, whatever you're using, just again type in Flat Earth Mark.
Flat Earth Mark.
You'll get there.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Well, we have had a blast talking to you. Thank you again, and we would love to have you back sometime to do this again.
I'm happy to
Yeah,
do it.
thank you.
Yep.
Awesome. Mark, thank you again, sir. Have a great rest of your Sunday.
All
Be
right.
safe out there. Take
Thanks,
care,
guys.
bud.
All right.
All right. Well, there it was, everybody. We hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for joining us tonight. We hope that you all had a great time. And don't forget to like and share, subscribe, do all that stuff. But we're just really grateful that you were here tonight.
Yep.
So, we're happy to move along for the week.
Absolutely. And we look forward to seeing you guys here next week too. And yeah, and if you wouldn't mind, just hit the like button real quick, because it really, really, really helps. It tells YouTube that because you like this video, all of the information that they have taken from you, they're going to compare that to other people's information that they stole. And they're going to say, hey, these guys might like this interview too.
Mhm.
And so anyway, it would help us.
Yeah, it's a good way to tell YouTube that we don't suck.
Yeah, and you know what? Don't even think of it as a thumbs up. Think of it as a middle finger in the face of the beast,
I
and
think of
let
it-
your freak flag fly, people.
It's just a thumb in the eye
Yeah.
of the beast. you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely.
just grab it by the lips and yank as hard as you can.
That's the great Weird Al said. And what else? Oh, hey, yeah. So we love to toast out of these new mugs that we
Oh, yeah.
designed. You guys should get you some.
They're pretty
Go over
cool.
to our Teespring page. Get you a mug. Oh, dude, we got T-shirts. We've
Mhm.
got like duffel bags, all that
Towels.
kind of stuff. Anyway,
Yeah, hoodies. We designed, like, Nick and I spent like half a day just designing all this cool stuff.
Yeah,
We
it's fun.
even like designed some like Patreon exclusive stuff, but we had a lot of fun, man.
Yeah.
You know, and we priced all of it like, you know, we priced it about as low as you can.
Yeah, basically at
What?
cost.
Oh my gosh.
Which is
Yeah.
Anyway, check it out. We would love for you to let the flag fly and show your
Yes.
support out there. And
Get you an aliens or just demons you can shoot shirt.
love that.
You know?
That was one of our first.
Yeah.
One of our originals.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Check that bad boy out.
Isn't that cool? It's got little
Yeah.
crosshairs.
Eat your
on the
heart out,
Gray's
Fox
face.
Mulder. You know? Whatever.
Oh man. But anyway, we have really enjoyed bringing you this interview. We hope you guys got a lot out of it, and we will be here next week.
Yep.
And hope you guys have a very blessed week.
Absolutely. I'm Jonathan.
I'm Nick.
We are the Goslings. Go forth
And strike down the darkness.
Nice. Adios, muchachos.